deserves to die.
No, we don't decide who lives and dies. Not down here.
Hey there, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be breaking down the character of Bellamy Blake from the show The 100 and his meteoric rise to power as the leader of the 100. Along the way, we're going to be looking at 3 general principles that you can use to establish yourself as the leader in your own life. If you want to gain a good understanding about what this series is about, then check out my introduction video. Major spoiler warnings going forward. For those of you who don't know what the 100 is, here's a rough rundown. Humans have survived in space for a century after a nuclear war destroyed Earth. However, oxygen on the space station is running out, so they send a group of teenage criminals, who number roughly 100, back down to Earth to see if it's survivable. Today, we're going to be looking at how Bellamy Blake emerged as the leader of the 100. We'll go into his backstory, what little we know of it anyways, and then we'll tackle whatever happens on the ground. Here is his backstory. Bellamy grew up as the son of Aurora Blake on the Ark. We don't know who his father was. When he was around 6, his mother Aurora gave birth to a daughter, Octavia. This is bad, because on the Ark you're only allowed 1 child to preserve oxygen for everyone else. Fast forward, Octavia has grown up hiding under the floor in their room. She is now 16, and Bellamy has gotten promoted to the guard. He breaks the rules to risk bringing Octavia out so that she can attend a masked ball so that she can have a little bit of fun. However, due to some unforeseen circumstances, both she and Bellamy end up caught. After Bellamy and Octavia were caught, their mother Aurora was tried and executed, Octavia was imprisoned, and Bellamy was demoted from the guard. We next see him a year later as a janitor, and the commander who caught him, Commander Shumway, offers him a position on the dropship, so he can be with Octavia, if Bellamy is willing to kill Chancellor Jaha. Bellamy agrees, shoots Jaha, and then makes it onto the dropship with the rest of the 100. With that all in mind, let's see what happens when Bellamy gets onto the ground. One of the 3 general principles I told you about is displayed almost immediately on the ground, and will continue to be a factor for the rest of the series. The first main principle that you need to keep in mind when trying to establish your own authority is this: win small victories. Social interaction is made up of hundreds of micro-interactions, all of which are playing into how people perceive you. There's also different types of judgments people are gauging you on based on those micro-interactions. They vary from "do I like you" to "where am I in relation to you in the social hierarchy." People are obviously not consciously thinking these thoughts, at least not usually. But it is always there in the background. So when you start getting your way on small things, people start to regard you as someone who wins, or is right, or someone who is powerful. And when you win small victories one after another, they build momentum. And then you can start winning medium victories, and then big victories. And then you're unstoppable. But you have to start with winning small ones near the beginning. We're going to take a look and see how Bellamy holds up to this idea in the next clip. The title for this link in the description is called Bellamy in the Dropship, if you'd like to watch it in full and follow along. So, Bellamy has a few objectives in this scene. 1, he wants everybody to back up. Number 2, he wants to open the door. And number 3, he wants Octavia to be the first one on the ground. Ignoring the fact that he probably wouldn't have been able to keep this group at bay for very long in real life, this is an amazing start for him as a leader. Now you may ask, why? Because of the first principle: win small victories. Let's go through the list and see just how well Bellamy did with his objectives. Number 1, he wants the kids to back up from the door. He does this by putting himself in the door. He asserts himself, he tells them he wants them to back up, he starts pushing people away, and he's trying to get people to cooperate with what he wants. And they back up. He wins his first small victory. Then, Clark objects to him opening the door. This is his first public confrontation. He gives a comeback for why it doesn't really matter. Clark doesn't have anything she can say, and the situation moves past her when Octavia draws the crowd's attention. Then he takes personal hold of the door handle and opens the door. This is his first small interaction with Clark, and he's won, because the door ended up opening. He has won his second small victory. He also wants Octavia to be the first person who steps on the ground, and she is. This means that he has actually won, because his choice for candidate for going on the ground first, Octavia, was the first person who went on the ground. And so he has won by proxy because his choice won out. This means that Bellamy has won his third small victory. This means in the span of a few minutes, Bellamy has achieved every single one of the objectives he set for himself, and he has won every interaction. This is a wonderful start for him. In this next clip, we're going to look at how Bellamy handles himself outside of the dropship. The context for this next clip is that they were told by the adults on the Ark that there would be supplies in Mount Weather for them to get, but they dropped the teenagers farther away than planned. The title for this link in the description is called Teenage Public Forum. First, there is a major gathering of all the important groups that have formed in the 100 to talk about what needs to be done about Mount Weather. This includes Murphy and his gang, Wells and Clark, Bellamy and Octavia, and Finn is there as a kind of wild card. This is the very first public forum that the teenagers have held since on Earth. As such, who says what and the dynamics that emerge are going to be important in determining who emerges as the leader. It starts with Murphy and his gang approaching Wells and Clark. Bellamy publicly challenges Wells. Wells gets sucked into an argument, and the forum has begun. Wells begins by offering an argument for why he thinks they should go to Mount Weather based on his father's advice. Octavia rejects this argument, then tries to put him and Clark down. Clark dismisses Octavia's dismissal, then gives a better reason for why they need to go to Mount Weather, and tries to encourage everyone to follow her lead. Bellamy chimes in, refutes Clark's argument, says she and Wells should go do it. The crowd happens to agree with him. Then more shenanigans occur, as people are shuffling for places in the dominance hierarchy. Bellamy's contribution to this public forum is small, but significant, for two main reasons. Number one, he engages in a second public confrontation with Clark, which we later see results in Clark leaving with only a small group. This means that Bellamy has secured another victory. Now, Bellamy's second major contribution to the public forum happens to be the second general principle, which is this: appeal to what the person/people in front of you want. Bellamy has now succeeded, whether intentionally or not, in aligning himself with the crowd, because he has told Clark what they wanted to tell her, which is something like, "Your privilege, time for you to do the work." The crowd cheers behind him. This is a small start to him associating himself as the speaker of the group's interests. Now, Bellamy has successfully established himself and aligned himself with the crowd, but he doesn't have any authority or influence yet. This will start to change as we look into the next clip. The context for this next clip is that it takes place after Clark and her group have left, and that Bellamy is scared that if the Ark comes down, he'll be punished for killing Jaha. The teenagers all have wristbands that transmit their vital signs to the Ark. He's gotten the idea that if they all take off the wristbands, the Ark won't come down because they see that everyone's dying, and so he won't get punished. If you want to watch this clip in its entirety, go down into the link below in my video that's called Bellamy Persuades.
No.
This is a fantastic example of someone utilizing principle number 2 to advance their goals. Bellamy's goal, in this case, is to convince Murphy to take off his wristband. I will break down exactly why what Bellamy says here works so well, and why I think he went to Murphy first in another video. To say, he's convinced Murphy to take off his wristband, even if he won't say it out loud. And he successfully subordinated Murphy to himself. Quickly, here's the small victory scoreboard. Pause the video if you want to look at it more. He is doing very well, and he's demonstrating some real good people work, but his position is still fragile, and he's operating in a bit of a vacuum. Let's roll the next clip and see if he can survive a very public challenge and debate. The full link for this video in the description below is called Bellamy Takes Off the Wristbands. This is Bellamy's first real public challenge and test after he's established his presence. So in this one, he's on the defense. Wells is accusing him of misleading the group, and offers an interesting argument for why Bellamy is wrong. Bellamy's objective is to beat Wells' accusations. Let's break it down. Bellamy has successfully put down a public rival and dissenter of his ideas in public debate and forum. But part of how he was able to win against Wells speaks to the third and final general principle of this video, which is take down one at a time. How he organized the 100 was that he went to Murphy first, won him over, then went to other people with Murphy and convinced them to join them. This builds and builds until he reaches a point where everyone is behind him, and he can now safely appeal to them as a group. He went one at a time. This principle is playing into why Wells lost so badly to Bellamy here. He put himself in a position where Bellamy could take him out all by himself. Wells is isolated from his allies, which would be Clark and her group. And he also goes into Bellamy's turf, or where Bellamy's allies are, and argues by himself. Bellamy is holding almost all the good cards here, which is why I'm not surprised he won this engagement. He has the crowd, he has popular support, and he has the stronger emotional hook. Wells is preaching an unpopular message while by himself in Bellamy's turf. I like Wells, but even I have to admit that he completely mismanaged that, and he essentially handed victory to Bellamy because he went in by himself. Bellamy is now at the point where the small victories are building momentum, and he can start winning medium to high victories. Let's see what he does with this momentum in the next clip. The link for this one in the description below is Bellamy Takes Wells' Wristband. What Bellamy is doing here is he's eliminating his rival both in public and in private. He just beat Wells in a public debate, and now he's taken Wells' wristband. What this signals is that he is unstoppable, and that his opponents aren't safe. Now, Wells is an easy target, because he's hated, he's trying to stand up to Bellamy in his own turf, and he's doing it alone. Not surprised Bellamy's winning here. But there is something to note. Bellamy taking over the camp was only possible because his main rivals, in the form of Clark and her team, were gone. This means that he could maneuver with his only opponent being Wells. And as stated before, Wells is an easy opponent to beat in this situation. Bellamy's execution of this takeover is masterful, but he is operating in a vacuum. This is a fantastic lesson, which is, do not leave your home base in the hands of your opponent when you're in the middle of a power struggle. Clark has good reason to go, which is they need food, and nobody else is willing to go. But now Bellamy has control of most of the camp, and wristbands are being taken off, which is something that Clark definitely doesn't want. It's now going to be really hard for her to make any progress in implementing her vision for the camp. And as demonstrated with Wells, if Clark ever comes back, she is in real danger from Bellamy. But that's for another episode. I also want to clarify that this time frame is very quick. The show is suggesting that Bellamy did all of this in half a day. I find that unlikely. I believe this could happen in 1 to 2 days, but regardless, it does show how quickly dynamics like this form. And while it probably wouldn't happen in half a day, if you're in a group of relative unknowns, that is how quickly you have to move to secure yourself as a leader. If you wait too long, you won't get a chance. I also want to say that Bellamy's performance here is near flawless for what he wants to achieve, which is group unity and himself at the head. But it creates rivalries and enemies. If your objective is to guide a friend group or influence your family with cohesion and moderate peace, then this is not the way to do it. But if you're entering a new space like a job, you can use these principles to help you establish yourself as a leader. Well, that covers this episode. Bellamy has officially taken over control of the 100. He did amazingly at it. But there's still one challenge left to face. Clark. I hope you'll join me for the next episode of this series. Like and subscribe, and remember, we're going through this so that you can learn how to become the leader you were always born to be. I hope you have a fantastic day.
Brave princess.